Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching the latest Kung Fu Panda series known as Kung Fu Panda The Dragon Knight. Now, this new Netflix series happens to not only bring the return of Jack Black, but it also happens to give us a new hero in the Wandering Blade. Thankfully, this knight from England doesn't overshadow our Kung Fu Panda, but she does bring an interesting story along with her, along with two more antagonists from her home country. Yes, the Kung Fu Panda series is now going multinational, when it comes to a hunt for various legendary magic weapons. Well, let's get to the story, shall we? The story is that Poe ends up losing his status as the Dragon Warrior after he accidentally destroys an entire village while attempting to stop these two weasels named Klaus and Veruca. Klaus and Veruca are off to try and get these magic weapons to try and rule the world, which includes a gauntlet that can create earthquakes, a whip that creates endless fire, a helmet that can control the storms, etc., etc., etc. So, when Poe realizes that catching these criminals can help him restore his reputation, he happens to join alongside a wandering knight known as the Wandering Blade, who comes from England and who plans on capturing these weasels in order to avenge her brother. And that's basically the setup for the full 11 episode series. It's definitely a type of story that we've seen many times, both animated and in live action, but I genuinely appreciate the fact that it brings a lot of chemistry between Jack Black and the actress who plays the Wandering Blade, especially because she happens to be the much more stoic and the much more serious character of the two, whereas Jack Black's comedy kind of goes hand in hand with how Poe's been portrayed in the films. You know, where much like the Furious Five and much like Master Shifu from the films, she initially believes that she doesn't need Poe at all, that he is in no way capable of helping himself at all. But then Poe happens to show her that he hasn't completely forgotten his kung fu skills, and she sees that she actually needs to help from him as much as he needs help from her. And while he learns more about being a knight, she learns more about kung fu and how it can help out her skills in a fight. It doesn't feel like one takes over for the other. It feels like they both happen to be heroes in this story pretty equally. And I think that's genuinely pretty good, considering that kung fu and the skills with the blade and English knighthood are two very different styles, and the series happens to highlight for that pretty well. On top of that, Klaus and Veruca, as a brother-sister duo, do make for some pretty entertaining antagonists. Especially since Veruca, for some reason, has a crush on Poe, which makes it the second weird crush that the series has had. Forever a girl having a crush on Poe, the other one being in the third movie, which doesn't seem to have gone anywhere at this point. But then again, I didn't expect it to either. So on top of the new antagonists and a new protagonist, we happen to meet a few new characters as well, such as an old monkey who's the guardian of a flaming whip. We meet the Emperor of China in this version, and he's about as unpleasant as you'd expect for one who basically has Poe treated as an outcast right from the get-go. And we also have the return of James Hong as Poe's father. Well, his adopted goose father, not his actual father, who was voiced by Bryan Cranston. So yeah, the characters, both old and new, are pretty good, and their voice actors do a great job, of course. But it feels like this 11 episode season is basically just a prologue to the story. Not only because only two of the four weapons are shown, but also because it's very clear that this is a story that's not going to just focus on China. It's going to basically take our heroes from country to country, expanding the Kung Fu Panda lore in a way that it hasn't done before in the movies. So, if it has interesting ideas for what to do with those future seasons, I think it's definitely going to be worth a watch. But for now, if you have missing Kung Fu Panda in your life, I do think that this will help you. It's got the comedy, the action, and even some of the animation flair that made that franchise so beloved. Obviously not as much as the films, and it clearly has some growing pains, but I think it's worth a shot. That's why I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. See you next time.